Hi, Rainey. Hope you're doing okay today.
Hello.
Well, hopefully we get a few more folks showing up. We'll give them a few more minutes if that's all right with you.
I'm happy to wait.
Okay, thank you kindly. Hello, Amy. Welcome.
Um,
Hello, Andrew. Welcome. Good afternoon, Audrey. So, well, I just saw it just past 1 o'clock, so we'll give classmates another minute or two, and then we'll get underway. Hello. All right, well, let's go ahead and, just spoke a half a second too soon, apparently. Well, welcome. Glad y'all are here. Thank y'all very much for joining. Um, so I'm looking to kind of run for about an hour or so. So hopefully that matches in with y'all's schedules. I know some of y'all had things to get to later this afternoon, but just kind of giving you a heads up. So today we're going to kind of focus in on a few, I guess, tips or you know, I'm not sure how else to describe it, or just different processes to consider taking notes, reading, and then just conducting research. The the At the outset, right, I'm going to present a number of different things. These are by no means should you consider them as like all or nothing approaches. Um, as you kind of move through your own academic path, your journey, whatever, however you want to characterize it, you're going to find out what works best for you. So I'll present a couple options and kind of tell you how some things and some of them that I do, others that I don't, and you should not at all think that you have to accept it all or nothing, right? You're probably going to just pick and choose. So whatever works best for you is exactly what you should do, right? Because we all think differently, we all process things differently, and so you shouldn't feel as if you have to do something one way just because somebody's right. Um, these three different areas we're going to look at today, they're all skills, right? They're things that take time. Just like if you want to learn a sport or drive a car or learn how to play a video game, whatever it is, it takes time to really pick it up and make it your own. So the sooner you start practicing at it, the sooner you're aware of the processes that you're going through and what your mind is doing, how you're reacting, right? Is this working or not working? The better off you'll be, right? Because the whole rest of your life, you might not be in school or academia teaching like I am, but you're going to be reading, you're going to be writing, you're going to be engaging with other people, you're going to have to do research into different areas, right? So that's the second thing to remember, right? A lot of this stuff I'm targeting towards classes and to college work and things like that, but the skills are absolutely transferable to whatever else that you've got going on in your life. Again, it might take some modification depending on circumstances or your personality type, right? But that's fine. As you go through, if you have any questions, of course, just like in class, feel free to jump in. I'm more than happy to help out and kind of respond to however to whatever y'all have. So please feel free. Um, so let's go ahead and get underway. And these are again just three topics we'll get into today. So we'll jump straight into note taking. I'll offer three different types, and we'll talk about each of these on coming slides. The first is the get it all down approach. Then depending on whether or not you have notes. So kind of like in my classes, I provide the PDFs. Some professors do, others don't. So just kind of different styles depending on that. And then finally, this sort of more official variety of note taking called Cornell notes. The get it all down approach, there we go, is what I do. So when I was in classes, my pen would just not stop moving, and there would be days when I would literally have 6 or 7 pages worth of notes at the end of a class. So it is exactly that. You're constantly just writing and getting things down, and since you're constantly writing, you're getting a ton of information down, and that information, since you've written it out, right, you have it available to you. I still have my notes from my undergraduate and my graduate school. So when I was teaching a class on Aristotle, for example, I went back to my graduate school classes where we talked about Aristotle, and boom, hey, I have all this stuff right there readily available. The reason it works for me is because I'm a little bit forgetful. I like, if you could see my desk now, it is just awash in a sea of notes and just here's a pile for that and there's a pile for this other thing, right? So I'm a little bit more forgetful. So having a more traditional note taking where you just kind of write down a few cue words or main points. I don't remember all the details that are tied to those main points, right? So I write these things down a lot, so that it's helpful. Sometimes I also have trouble looking at the big picture of things. So understanding the overarching structure that a lecture or a conversation might be taking. And so by just kind of writing all the stuff down, just literally word vomit on my page, my notes, it allows me to have it all there, so that later on I can go back and reorganize the notes, refresh myself on the notes, and so that's one of the big drawbacks, is that to really get a lot out of this approach, you've got to go back to it a second time and read through all the crazy notes. Um, because I found that sometimes I'll skip whole sentences or words, or I'll have one line of notes and then the line below it just isn't connected. And so I've got to remember, okay, what was that connection, and try to figure that out, so that when I go to study it later, or 10 years down the line, when I go back to those notes, they make a little bit more sense. So again, this getting it all down approach, it's a bit time consuming overall, right? Because you've got to be pretty active in a given class, and then you to get the best out of it, the most out of it, excuse me, you have to go back to it and kind of look through them again. um, but you certainly get it all down, and they're yours, right? You have them forever and ever. um, our next approach is just kind of termed as outlining. So when you're outlining, right, you've hopefully all made outlines before, where you're just hitting the highlights, right? You've got the big Roman numeral thing, and then you might have a few subheaders or sub points below that, and then you go on to Roman numeral number 2, and you've got the big theme or the big idea, and then just a couple things after that. So with outlining, you're just doing that, right? You're capturing the major points, the big ideas that are being presented by the professor, by the presenter, by whoever it is. So since you're only doing that, since you're only focusing on those the main points, you're going to get a set of notes at the end of class that are pretty well organized, that are not going to have it's not going to be pages upon pages upon pages long. It's going to be organized. It's going to kind of cut straight to the point of what the professor was presenting. This is how my wife would take notes in her schooling. She and we had a couple classes together when we were undergraduates, and we'd leave the exact same class, and I would have 5 or 6 pages of notes, and she'd have half a page. But that worked for her, because she's incredibly smart, and her mind works very, very quickly, and so she can look at that half a page of a notes, and she'll read the first line, and she'll be able to recall all of the stuff that was associated with that. And so with her, it's just that you use the outline as a way to just remind yourself, like, okay, this is what the teacher was talking about, and here's all the other stuff that goes along with it. So if your mind works like that, great. You don't need to kill yourself in class getting all that stuff down. So again, yeah, if you are able to be pretty organized in the class, you can kind of keep your notes a bit cleaner the first time through. By all means, go with that. Just pull out the keywords. If you can follow along with the argument as a whole, awesome. Do that. Some of the drawbacks there is that you've got to certainly be aware of what's going on in the class itself. You've got to be able to have that mental structure to say, okay, we're talking about this thing, and it's still tied to big Roman numeral number 1. You've got to bear of when the transition to the next big Roman numeral is going to be. So it just takes a little more awareness of what's going on in class, but on the flip side, you're also not killing yourself writing down every blessed thing like you would with the first approach. Outlining can be a little bit different depending on whether or not your professor. Wait, do I have that next? Sorry, no, thought I had another one. Whether or not your professor provides PDFs or notes. So I give PDFs of all the presentations that I've got. So it's sort of a built-in outline for you. So if you're able to print those things out, awesome. You can just take notes on your printouts, and that way you've got those things. And when it comes time for the exam, right? Oh, here's all of my notes right here, and they're organized by topic, and they're organized by there's some foot of the argument. So it really presents certainly a benefit to the outlining style of note taking, because you've already got the framework there, and so you can now focus instead on those little details. So how do these things all connect? What's the big picture that is being painted right now? Um, uh, so you can focus it, like just putting that another way, you can focus more on the details, since the kind of like I've got here, the important parts of the big topics are already identified. Finally, are Cornell notes, and this is a style of note taking that was developed by a professor at Cornell University, which is a pretty well renowned college here in the United States, and it's sort of a balance between the two styles that I would just been describing. So Cornell notes, it's got a bit more of a formal structure on the actual sheet itself. These are ones I just Googled, and so you can find templates like this, or you can just do it on your own sheet of paper in your notepad, or whatever it is that you write on. But you'll see that there's 3 different sections. On the left are questions or cue words, so things that are just like key terms, things like that. At the bottom is a summary section, excuse me, and then the largest section is a notes section. So here in the notes section, right, this biggest section that we see here, this is where you take just traditional notes. You'll as the professor is just talking along or presenting ideas or whatever, this is where you get your ideas down, your concepts, your definitions, your whatever is being discussed, right? That's just your regular old note sheet. In the left-hand column are your questions. So you'll say, you might define, or rather, sorry, if there's a term, right? So in all of my classes, I've talked about subsidiarity. So you might just write the word subsidiarity over here in this questions or keywords, and then over on the right next to it is the definition of subsidiarity. So over here in this left-hand column, these are just quick little identifiers, or you might think of them as signposts. Here's what's happening. And then a little bit later, okay, here's the big idea here, and then here's the major idea in this next chunk of notes, and here's a question that I had while I was thinking of while I was listening to the teacher, right? Whatever it is. And then finally, after the class is done, then back through your notes, you'll read all these keywords, all these notes, and you'll write a quick summary. So here is the big overarching picture of whatever is taking place on this page, right? So you might say, here we talked about subsidiarity and how it relates to this concept of federalism, which allows for local governments to really be able to express themselves. Boom, that's it. It can be just a sentence or two. And so at the end of all of this, right, at the end of all of this, you've encapsulated both of the previous note-taking styles, as well as giving yourself a great study guide as well. So just like with outlining, the Cornell notes, because they're structured on the page itself, they're going to be much more organized. You've got the benefits of both the get everything down approach and the outlining approach. So if you are able to kind of follow along in the lecture pretty quickly, to process that information, to figure out, okay, this is a key term, I got to get this over in the left-hand column, and then quickly move back to your note-taking, right? This might be a style for you. It does, of course, take a little bit more awareness. You've got to kind of be aware of key terms versus this is just sort of a throwaway explanation or whatever it is. So you've got to have more awareness of what's going on. So more akin to that outlining method. It also does take a little bit of time, right? Because you have to have your notes in class, and then after class, at some point in time, you've got to go back and you've got to add in that summary. But at the end of the day, you've got the best of both worlds plus a summary, right? So it's really a very well balanced approach to note taking. And when I was teaching at the high school level, this is what I encouraged my students to do in all of my AP classes and my dual credit classes there, just because it forces, not, it doesn't force, but it really encourages students to be aware of what's going on and encourage them encourages them to also go back to their notes and get those summaries down as well. Just like with outlining, the Cornell Notes provides a fantastic template for studying. So come test time, you've got all of your notes, and they're going to be pretty well organized. And if there's a question about subsidiarity and you're like, oh God, what does this term mean? Well, rather than having to flip through every single page of your notes and trying to find where you wrote that one line with the definition of subsidiarity, well, you can just scroll through this keyword section. Okay, subsidiary, where is it, right? So you're just looking at a few words here and there. And once you find that keyword, boom, jump right over to the notes. So three pretty different styles of note-taking. Any questions or other approaches that y'all might have in mind? Or all right, let's go ahead and jump into our next section. Then this is going to be on academic reading, and grab a link real quick. All right, so we are going to look at a couple articles in particular. I'm going to send a link over on the chat feed, and this will link you to a OneDrive folder that I've got. We're only going to look at the first two articles, so you can either download them and have them available to you, or I'll also have them on the screen. We're not going to interact with them a whole lot, but I thought it might be helpful. Just different people. You want to have a hard copy, or you want to have it on your own screen, or if you've got dual monitors going, whatever works for you, right? Just wanted to have it at least available to you. So again, we're going to look at the two whose authors' names start with B's. So moving into academic reading, there's two crucially important things to keep in mind. First of all, you've got to actively read. So in case you're not familiar with what active reading is, it's that, right? So sometimes, at least I have thought, oh, what time is it? I pull out my phone, look at the time, put it back in my pocket, and I say, oh, damn it. I have no idea what time it is. I have to take my phone back out a second time, look at what time it is, and then I try to remember it, right? So that first time, I was just going through the motions. I wasn't paying attention. I was just looking at words and not really engaging with the text in any meaningful way, even though I was just trying to find the time. But how often do you do that with text messages, or if you're scrolling through some social media, whatever, you're just not really paying attention. You're just kind of going through the motions, and whatever the case might be. Welcome, Andrew. Welcome. Or Anthony, sorry. So the approach to active reading is like your mind is alert. You are engaging with the text. You're thinking about what the author is saying as you're going through it. At the same time, you're also making connections to other ideas that you've got, to previous topics that we've covered in class, or if you're at work, right? This thing your boss said 2.5 months ago that, oh yeah, this is tied into that, right? Whatever it is, you're just thinking about it as you go through it. You're just not passively glancing through the words. With active reading, one of the best things that you can do to encourage active reading is getting rid of all distractions. Whenever I am reading, I tend to have, I need to have my phone away from me. I'll have it on a charger in another room, or I'll set a timer on it for 30 minutes, and I'll do some work for 30 minutes and then go back and check and see whatever I missed, and deal with that, and then go back to the work for 30 minutes, just because it's just an easy distraction, and it breaks your concentration. I like to have music on in the background, but I am not able at all to have words in the music. So that means I'm listening to like electronic music or classical music, or just something like that, just because the words are distracting to me. My wife, on the other hand, she works with a TV on. She will have like Law and Order something or other on in the background, and she finds that it is less distracting to have that TV talking to her than silence. She likens it to when you're at a restaurant, back when we could actually go to restaurants and things like that. Um, she says, everybody's talking at their own tables, but you can't really listen in to anybody. So it just forms this like white noise. And so that works for her in a way that whenever we work together, I just I have to put on headphones with either nothing or leave the room just because it's too distracting to me. Um, so whatever works for you is the thing that you should do. I know we don't always live in ideal situations. I mean, I shared with everybody that for almost a month I had 5 extra people in my house, and 3 of them were students, and another 2 of them were teachers, and so we were all uh, in our own worlds, just trying to fighting over computer space and things like that. Welcome, Gary. Glad you could join. Um, so again, whatever works for you is the thing that you should do. But whatever approach you have, try to remain focused and engage the text. And if you find yourself with your mind wandering, that's going to happen. Get up, go get a sip of water, kind of stretch your legs, do a few jumping jacks or stretches, and I found, at least with me, that really helps to kind of refocus my attention back from whatever it was. So let's see. Yeah, active reading, minimal distractions. Awesome. Okay, so let's take a quick look at a couple other things before we get into the article. As you're reading, especially if you're reading to learn something, right? I'm not talking. You don't have to do this if you're just scrolling through social media or if you're just reading an article in a magazine, right? That's not where I'm focusing. So if this is something for learning that you need to remember or be aware of or research, have a system when you read. For me, I have learned that writing on the text itself is the best way that I can remember things and get back to this. So for me, I have a system of notations, and we'll take a look at it here in just a moment. But so as I'm reading through, I use underlining, I use stars, I use marginalia, so comments on the side, and all the different symbols that I use, they mean something to me. And I've been using more or less the same system for 5 or 6 years now. So I can go back to a book I read 5, 6 years ago, and I've got the same exact notation. So a star means the one thing, and an underline means this other thing, and an arrow means something different. So again, this is something that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. So whatever system works for you, great. And also just know it's going to take time to really develop that system. And that's okay, right? You're all still in college and maybe even in high school still. So you've got time to develop it, but the sooner you get it, the sooner you have it down, the easier it'll be for the whole rest of your life. Right? Because as soon as you can figure out how to read actively, to engage with whatever it is you're reading, or even whoever you're talking to, right? That's a skill that will literally last you the whole rest of your life. So figure out what that is. And it's easy for me to say that, but it took a long time. I first started writing in books when I was in high school, and it wasn't until late college that I figured out what it was going to be, and it's still changed over the years, and it's probably going to change going forward. So for me, here is a picture out of a book that I'm reading. This is a work of fiction, The Man in the High Castle, and this is something I'm working on right now for an article. So what you're seeing here, this is more notes than I would normally take in a book, so don't feel overwhelmed like you've got to be this involved in the text. I kind of found the page that had the most stuff on it, just to draw attention to it, right? So I'm reading this book, and 10 years down the line, I can come back to this book and I'll know what all this stuff means. So for example, we'll kind of zoom in right here. So some of the things that I use is just underlining for stuff that's kind of important. If it is very important, I'll put a star next to it. And sometimes I'll even have 2 or 3 stars if it is just like, oh my God, I have to include this in my article, or I'm a fool. It'll get more stars, and that's fine, right? That's what works for me. It's a way to indicate importance. I'm also actively reading, right? So here, what page are we on? I forgot. This is on page 42, and look, tie in with I can't read that. Settlers or restless. Oh yeah, with restlessness. Back on page 36, right? So pages ago, whatever it is, 4 or 6 pages ago, um, there's something else that I need to be aware of. So actively reading and using these notes in the margin to remind me of that. Here at the bottom of the page, I've got more comments. So this is more explaining why all this stuff is so important. Um, this way, I don't have to remember all of this off the top of my head. I don't have to keep it all in my head. I don't have to remember, oh God, what page is that restless thing on? Oh man, I don't remember. It's all here. So I can go through this book. It's, I don't know, 180, 200 pages long. And rather than turning literally page and reading the whole thing and second page reading the whole thing, I can just scroll down. I can read these notes. I can check out the stars. I can, another thing I use is this uh, horizontal line right here. So if I'm underlining a lot and I don't want to underline, right, I just draw a horizontal line straight down the text. And that's, again, another way to draw my attention to something. Arrows as well. Again, drawing attention to something important. So whatever works for you is what should work for you. And I know we don't always have the benefit of marking in books. Certainly I still borrow books from university libraries and things like that. Or I just don't want to print off an article. So in that instance, I take notes and I use a very similar notation style. So I'll have page 42 on the left hand in margins, and then kind of a couple comments on what's important on page 42. So again, we're actively engaging with the text itself. Let's go ahead. Right. So again, just be flexible, or sorry, have a regular system where symbols mean the same thing to you, whether it's circles, squares, purple highlighters, right? Whatever it is that works for you, figure it out, right? It takes time. Practice. Try stuff for a month. Try it for 2 books and see if it works for you. And if not, try something different. And also keep in mind that you're not going to have the same level of rigidity for everything, right? It's not always the case that you're reading something to do something with it immediately, right? So the book we just looked at, I'm working on an article, and so I'm actively using it. I have a thesis in mind, and I'm working to prove that concept. But it's not always. I'm not always reading for that level of depth. Sometimes I just want to get the gist. Sometimes I just want to have an idea of what the person's arguing, and that's fine. Right? That's totally, of course, going to happen. So depending on how you're reading, what you're reading, what the purpose of the reading is, right? You can certainly adapt your approach to it. You can read actively, even if you're just kind of skimming something. And I'll show you tricks for that right now. So in case y'all came a little bit late, I'm going to repost a link. This will take you to a Dropbox, a OneDrive thing. You can pull the articles if you want. I'm also going to have them on the screen here, so don't feel like you have to have them. You don't have to, but they're there. I really love this Man on Horseback article. It's about George Washington. Really fascinating. So if you're not interested in that, that's fine. So we'll look at this real quick, and then a second article as well. When you are approaching an article, and again, this is something that you can use for any kind of article. We're going to look at a couple ones that are tied to political theory, but again, these are broadly applicable to everyone. Read any of the leading bits, so any introductory things that are present before the article itself or before the body of the text take place. Flip through and see if there's any images or pictures or graphs or charts or whatever it is. This will help to give you an idea of what's coming, what you're about to read about. If you're reading something that's more scientific, right? So you have charts and graphs explaining that show data. Spend time figuring out what those charts and graphs are getting at. Because if you can understand the data, understand what is being discussed first, then when you start reading through the article, everything will make sense a lot more, right? Because that article that you're reading was written after all that data was collected. So whoever collected the data had all that stuff in mind when he or she sat down to write the actual article. So by looking at the pictures, by reading the introductory things, by looking at those charts and graphs or these standout quotes, and I'll show you what those things are here in a second, you'll have a really good idea of the overall approach, right? The overall style that is being presented by the author. Hi, Anna. So let me pull up that article right now. So this is A Man on Horseback by Richard Brookhiser. It was published in The Atlantic, which is not an academic journal, but still it's a higher end popular journal, right? It's still very, very approachable to just to the general population. So here we've got the title, A Man on Horseback, and we see this dude on horseback, George Washington. Okay, so there's something special about him. He's got draped in the American flag. Okay, something about that might be important. Some people are looking at him. He's not engaging with the people at all. So, okay, so there's something there. Here's an example of that introductory bit here at the top. If ever a man did, George Washington had bearing, an attitude of his body that helped to make his fame. He was also of strong and flaring temperament, which lent energy to his purpose, but made his anger terrible. And to contain and channel his high feeling, he had a personal moral code built on maxims he had studied from youth, an essay on character. Okay, so we know this is going to be about his character. We know that he's got some unusual characteristics. Right? We don't think of George Washington as being an angry, temperamental guy. We think of him, oh, that's the guy who helped defeat the French and the Native Americans in the French and Indian War. That's the guy who helped defeat the British. That's the guy who helped write the Constitution. That's the guy who was our first president. Right? So this article might be not necessarily challenging it. We don't know if he'll challenge that, but it's at least going to expand on that, right? Look at his character. Okay, so let's look at other. Here, okay, there's another. Okay, so George Washington's throwing a rock or something. Okay, we'll figure out what that means, I guess. Here's one of those standout quotes. Washington's feats of strength and stamina were remarkable. He once threw a stone up to the Natural Bridge. During the Revolutionary War, he could stay awake on horseback for days. Okay, so now we've got a better idea. Okay, so he's a strong guy. This thing it's where is it? Yeah, 215 feet high, and he threw a rock up that high. Okay, that's pretty impressive. Okay, all right, so we're gonna figure out what else on here. We got a weirdo zombie Washington picture here. Okay, that's weird. Okay, another standout quote. His temperament had its raw edges, and when they were incautiously touched, he could become dangerous. Washington's temper and willfulness were a lifelong presence in war and in peace. Okay, again, we're getting to some underlying characteristics of Washington. All right, are there any other big ones? Oh, here's character was seen in Washington's time as a role one played until one became it. Character also meant how one's role was judged by others. It was both the performance and the reviews. All right, so now we've read 3 of these standout quotes, and these things are used they're used to make sure that articles end at the bottom of a page, right? That's the purpose of these things. But they're also the most dynamic lines a lot of times in the article. These are the things that the editors and the author felt were most important, right? So without having read a single thing like of this article, right? Not a single paragraph, we already know a lot about this article. And we might know if this is something that I'm interested in reading or not. Does this relate to the thing that I'm researching or not? Without having to read, again, a single paragraph of this whole article. To bring in active reading, all right, let's look at this last quote here. Character was seen in Washington's time as a role one played until one became it. Character also meant how one's role was judged by others. It was both the performance and the reviews. Okay, so this is different from how we think about characterization and us, right? Today, the mantra is you be you, right? You do your own thing, express your own thoughts, right? It's very individualized. It's very personalized, and that's what's encouraged. And it is what it is. I'm not knocking it's just how we act, what we think, how we think today. But that's different in Washington's era, right? Character is something that it's like a role, right? We might see this today as somebody's just putting on airs, or they're pretending to be someone that they're not. They're being ungenuine to themselves. So today, while that seems strange to us, this is the world that Washington lived in. Okay, so this is going to be a very different presentation of the character and of Washington himself. And it's going to be different from how we think about it, right? So we're getting clues as to what's going on in this article, again, without reading a single paragraph of this article. And these are great ways to approach writing, right? Because as you're researching for your signature assignment or for anything else in your academic or professional careers, you're going to come across stuff that you don't need to know. And if you can eliminate that stuff quickly, you just saved yourself all that time to focus on the most important elements. So let's take just a quick moment here. Let me zoom in a little bit, and in case you don't have it up, I'll have y'all read through this first paragraph here just by yourself, right? So it's down to here, right? So all this first section and then this right there. So if y'all will read through that and kind of pick out, what am I actually asking for? I forget. Yeah, so read it, identify the author's thesis, and get some ideas of what might be discussed. So let's get through that. I'll give you all a moment. All right. So what is Brookhiser going to be arguing here? What might you say his thesis is? Yeah, go ahead, Andrew. Oh, looks like we just lost Andrew. All right. Well, somebody else. Anybody else? What do y'all? Oh, all right. So we've got something about a division of his categories, and welcome back, Andrew. Did you want to share your thoughts on? Actually, is he back in yet? Oh, no, we haven't. All right, so we've got something about Washington's character. We've got 3 different categories, right? What shaped his character? Awesome. And we have this metaphor here, right? As a 3-story house that he has thoughts about formed him. Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. Thank you as well. So we're kind of diving into not Washington's exploits per se, although there's going to be a lot of those in this particular article, but we're diving deeper into them. We're seeing what they mean for him exactly, right? And so as you're reading through, now you have an idea of those main points, right? Think back to the 3 standout quotes we looked at. By simply reading this one paragraph, well, now we have more of an idea of how that's going to excuse me, how that's going to play out in the article. Yeah, and Gary, you could argue that. Let's see. Yeah, so here there's something about his life, right? He had a lot of experiences in life. You could argue that that might be the thesis. You could also make an argument, I'd say, for this last sentence being the thesis, or maybe it's some combination of the two, right? Maybe it's a thesis paragraph, just kind of laying things out. Um, so again, by reading one simple paragraph, we have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Does this matter? Is this relevant to what you're trying to accomplish or not? So again, I love this article. It gets into a lot of some really interesting stories about Washington himself. So I highly encourage you to read it. It's about 10 pages long, and now you'll have access to it. So not going to dwell any longer on this. Let's jump over now to our next article. Oh, right. So if you're just sort of reading to get the gist, in this particular article, right, since we're learning about character, there's going to be a lot of personal anecdotes. You can maybe skim over those. You don't necessarily have to read every single thing that Washington did in this article to have a good idea of what's being argued, what's being presented. With something that's more of a directly academic article, so something coming out of a journal, so something that might be more appropriate um, for the signature assignments. A few other sort of like top line things to look for as well. And the first off will be the publication information. Is this article coming from a reputable source? Oh, no worries, Andrew. Glad you were able to make it back in. And whether or not something is a reputable source, that's just going to take time and experience and exposure to different places. So this one particular article, accountability debates, the Federalists, the Anti-Federalists, and Democratic deficits. Right. So this sounds a bit heavier. It's coming out of the Journal of Politics. So this is a more academic leaning journal than something like the Atlantic Monthly, which is more of a general population is what it's targeted at. So again, that just takes time. Is it a good length? Academic things are not just going to be a couple of pages long. Look for 15 pages or more in solid academic articles. Again, that's not a hard and fast rule, but just a sort of a rough thing to keep in mind. And this is you can learn this information without even looking at the article itself. Okay, sure thing, Anna. Thank you. I'll take a look at it as soon as I can. Once you get into the article itself, a few other ways to kind of judge whether or not this is appropriate or if this is a good article is by looking at whether or not there are references included. Does this article tell you where it got its information from? Does it cite things in the text itself? So let's take a look at this Borowike article. And here again, we have this introductory thing right here at the top to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. Publication information right here. We're seeing citations in the text itself. We'll keep scrolling, and we see footnotes. Footnotes, fantastic to have footnotes. Even more footnotes, great. So you know that this person at least is telling you where the information came from. And again, this is not a guarantee that this is a solid article, but we're looking for clues, right? That's what we're doing right now. So we keep on going down. Oh, hey, look, a list of works cited, or the references. All these documents, so these I don't know, 40 or 50 documents or works were all referenced in this book itself, or in this article itself. So this author at least did a lot of research into their topic. They found a lot of outside voices, a lot of other perspectives that they bring to bear in this article itself. So again, not a guarantee that it's going to be a well-researched article, but it's at least a clue. So we have this introductory thing that we can look for, and this one didn't have any pictures or graphs, but it does have a lot of section breaks. Okay, so representative government and accountability. Okay, federalist accountability. Okay, so we're talking about accountability, something with government and problems with accountability. So we're going to see the other side. So problems in direct democracies as opposed to the representative democracy that we have here, or federalism. Unaccountability again, right? So this is a major theme, and the author is exploring it in different areas, in different realms of life. Um, so since we're already at about 45 minutes of our time together, I'm not going to dig into this article very much more. But again, right, we've looked at a lot of different ways to um, give a cursory judgment on an article without even reading any of it. And that's going to save you so much time in the research process, and it's really going to help you draw out major ideas and concepts that are being discussed in any writing that you encounter. Um, so let's go ahead and yeah, we'll skip over that and we'll jump into the research portion. So this last bit. Um, Regardless of whether or not you are dual credit or traditional Sanjak student, you have access to all of our online databases, and you can get there by going to our main website, sanjak.edu. Pull that up real quick. Um, so here we are. It's at our college's webpage. You can go to quick links, down to libraries right here. And then you'll want to click on article databases, which is right here. Before we do that, though, I want to show you two things on this page, and this is this chat browser right here and this phone number right here. These are both um, direct ways to get in touch with librarians on a San Jacinto campus. This is not some call center way far away. These are Sanjak employees or well-trained student workers, and most of them, I'm pretty certain they're all going to be full-time employees. So if you are not able to find what it is you're looking for, you just like, I don't know what database to look at. What are some good search terms for this whatever? I don't remember how to get into that database at all. Reach out to these folks. They are fantastic, top of the line librarians, and especially now that there's just barely anybody on campus, they are looking for stuff to do. Their hours are here in this green box, which they run until 9 o'clock on weekdays. They've got hours every single day of the week. So if you're stuck, reach out to me, reach out to these librarians, and they will be more than happy to help out. So please take advantage of that resource. All right, so quick links, libraries, and then over to the article databases. And this will be the most direct way to get into all of the databases that Sanjak has access to, which you as a student also have access to. So here, they're all broken down by academic discipline. Conveniently, though, the two that I most prefer are right at the top of the list. So this academic one file is a pretty comprehensive source. The one that I use the most in college and grad school, and even still today, is this Academic Search Complete. So we'll take a look at that one. Sorry, my dog's coughing in the background. All right, so you got to log in using your name and G number. Submit. And here you get into just the main search page, and you can just type in whatever term right here, and stuff will start popping up, and you can search for anything at this point. Because you're hitting so many different databases, I usually use this advanced search. That way you can use a few different more key terms. One other thing I forgot, you can also identify what databases you want. So all of these are available to you through Academic Search Complete. Some of them are pretty specific, so Middle East Search Reference, right? So these are just Middle Eastern, Middle Search. Misread that, my apologies. Let's see. So Sustainability Reference Center, Texas Reference Center, Teacher Reference Center, Race Relations Abstracts, right? So all these very, very niche things, or you can also just do sort of this very, very broad ocean search, which is what it defaults to. So we'll stick with the default for now. And we'll go back to advanced. So let's say you want to know about the President of the United States. You can search just like that, and it'll pull up every blessed thing on the President of the United States in all those different journals and books and ebooks, articles, and blah, 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 that that Academic Search Complete has access to. One thing I would suggest is that you limit your search to full text. Nothing infuriated me more than to be searching and searching and searching and find something that sounds fantastic, and I click on it, and I don't have access to the article itself. So don't have to, but let's just say it just makes your life easier. You can look for different document types. So if you're looking for just reviews, if you want music review, well, a lot of reviews. If you're looking, wow, there's a recipe. I did not know that. I've never seen that before. So any different documents, all sorts of different languages, all sorts of different publications as well. You can limit by year. So let's just limit this to the past 20 years. So everything tied to President of the United States past 20 years that we have full text access to. Let's go. And we get 181,000 hits. So that's a uselessly large amount of hits. So now we'll have to narrow it down. But before we do that, I wanted to show a few things, right? So we've got access to periodicals. So these are things like things that might be published every month or so. What else are we looking at? Oh, right. Let me just get a few more options per page here. All right, so we got those periodicals. What else? Wow, lots of periodicals today. Usually we'll see a few like newspaper articles or, so we have academic journals as well. Sometimes you see newspaper articles, sometimes you see film clips. For our, the signature assignments, one of the requirements is it needs to be academic. So let's just make our lives easier and select these academic journals. And still, we're going to get, what was the number, 17,000 reviews or 17,000? So 180,000 down to 17,000. That's still quite a bit. Yeah, some of them are very, very professional. They're very, very deeply academic, and that can be kind of frustrating. And I know that ours is an introductory level class, so I'm not expecting that you dive into the super nitty gritty 50-page articles. I'm not at all expecting that. If you want to do that, I'm happy to help you out through that, but not requiring that whatsoever. So that will, so Gary's point, yeah, you'll just kind of go through this. So we had President of the United States, got 181,000. So now we'll try to just say power of the president. We'll see what happens here. When this is my favorite part of the whole process. I love the idea of just searching, of digging through, trying to find the extra. Dissertations are fine as well, Gary. Absolutely. By all means, those are well-researched things. I don't know if you're joking or not, but yeah, I thought you might have been. Those would be a lot of writing. Oftentimes over 200 pages long. But anyway, so this was the thing that I loved the most. The thing that it was just sort of the search, right, and reading all these things and coming into contact with different ideas and figuring out what other people have done and trying to either include their research or refute their research. The thing that always just I hit a wall at was when I had to sit down and just start writing. That was the worst to me, and that still is like I love the researching. I love marking up my books and articles and things like that, and taking notes and putting things all into perspective. But eventually you have to sit down and write. So again, right? So we're down to only 10,000, which is still a lot, but it's a lot less than 180. So maybe we just kind of limit the years, and we'll just get the most recent things, right? And you can add. Sorry, let me let this thing come out. So down to 5,000, right? So we can add another field and type in federalism. We type in federalism. And so it's just all so simple to, quote unquote, so simple. It's easy to get access to a lot of different information. The hard part is narrowing it down to figure out what key terms you want. So if you're working on the signature assignments, right, have a thesis in mind, or have some idea or some concept that you want to work on, and even maybe pull a couple words from the the prompts themselves and throw them into more search boxes, and again, just narrowing these things down. You might have to open a few tabs. You might have to like skim through these articles, and that's fine, right? You now have tools available to make it a lot easier, right? This one's 87 pages long, so you're probably not going to use that. But maybe you skim through it and you think, God, I'd really like to know about war and emergency powers. So you go to this article and you find the section on war and emergency powers. You read the intro, you read the section you care about, you read the conclusion, and that's it, right? You don't have to read all of it to refer to part of it. You need to make sure that it's a reputable argument, and this person's not saying that Hitler should have done so much more in Europe, right? You want to make sure that stuff like that isn't happening, but you also don't have to read everything, right? We looked at a few cues, a few ways to speed up this process once you start getting into the articles themselves and say, okay, well, maybe I don't want to go through this 87-page article, so let me see what's up next. Okay, just kind of working through. If ever you get stumped, if ever you think, oh God, I really love to use this article, but I don't know if it would be considered academic enough, send me a link. Let's see, where's it? So you can do the permalink right here, right there, and just stick that in an email to me. Say, hey, Dr. Russell, I was thinking about using this. This is what I want to use it for, and I'll take a look. It's pretty simple for me to get in. If you would, sometimes these links don't always work. I don't know why, but if you'll at least also just kind of copy paste the title, that way, if the link works, great, super easy. But if not, I can at least find the article that you are referring to. So I know I've kept y'all for just under an hour. So any questions, anything y'all want me to kind of walk through once more, or any other approaches that y'all have in mind? Absolutely, Gary. Yeah. For me, that very act of writing is the best thing to help me remember something. Yeah, and complete. Yeah, I'm there as well. My dissertation, I wrote every blessed word of it out by hand, and then typed it in, and simply writing it out, and it allowed me to see it on the page. I was making edits as I was writing. Sure, Amy, and just then I would transfer it over to a Word process, to Microsoft Word, and so I'd already looked at it and edited a few times, and so when I'm typing it all out, I'm editing it a third or fourth time by that point. So yeah, writing stuff out is by far the best way that I've seen to do that. Yeah. It was I think 180 pages roughly in the end. So Amy, so you'll just go to stanjack.edu, just the homepage, go over to quick links, down to libraries, and then over to article databases. And then the database that we were just looking at, so you'll hit all databases, and then, oh, sorry, too far, and then academic search complete. And this will bring us to that search bar, or the search screen that we were first at. Awesome, you're welcome. All right, anything else from y'all? That's great, Gary. And yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, that blank piece of paper is the most intimidating thing in the entire world. So if you can just start getting thoughts, and that's usually what I have to do as well, because I'm staring at it thinking, okay, I'm thinking of the finished paper, and you can't start from the end, right? You have to go methodically, and so I'll just write down random thoughts that, okay, I want to talk about the perspectives of history in this novel, and then think about the different characters that it might be. Yeah, awesome. Uh, so yeah, hopefully that's a I'm gonna steal that. And it's great when you get to that point, right? You want that thrill of completing something, but you gotta do it step by step for sure. And it's going to take time, right? It's absolutely going to take time, and that's why in the signature assignment, the assignment itself on page 2, I note very clearly, you just please give yourself the time to do this, because if you want to do it well, it's going to take time. And I know time is a hard thing for us to carve out of our lives, but that's a skill, right? You being able to prioritize and work through the different needs of your life, and figuring stuff out like that, right? That is a lifelong thing that you'll struggle with, but the sooner you can figure it out, the better off you'll be. I have yet to figure it out. I'm just full disclosure, but I'm certainly better now than I was 20 years ago. All right, Andy. Well, thank you for joining us today, and thank you all for being here. I know it was a day off for some, or you're squeezing me in between work and lunch and things like that. So thank you all very much. It means a lot to have y'all here. Um, just a heads up that probably I think in 2 weeks, so mid-October sometime, I'm going to have something similar, but for the election coming up. So I'll kind of walk through what to expect at polling stations, where to find information, where to find the polling stations, and where to find information on candidates, stuff like that. So something, I'll send out dates for that later. But again, thank y'all so much. Take care, Gary. Bye, Amy. Anthony, I'm not gonna have take care, Rainey. I'm not gonna have another one like this, but I will try to figure out how to download this. You too, Christine. Thank you. How to download this one and post it up to YouTube, so they'll be able to at least watch it, even if they're not able to participate as much. And I'll also include a link to the articles that we looked at in here today. So yeah, so please let them know that I'll send a link around for that in the coming days. You're very welcome, Anthony. Take care. Have a good day. Audrey, is there anything I can give you a hand with?